Hei, kjære lytter, og tusen takk for at du hører på Henrik Beckheim podcast. Denne podden er folkefinansiert, og om du har lyst til å støtte arbeidet med denne podden videre, så kan du vippse et valgfritt beløp til vipsnummer 82 32 78. Jeg setter stor pris på enhver støtte du har lyst til å gi. Tusen takk. Du kan nå bli medlem av denne podcasten, og fremover nå så vil alle de som er medlemmer få tilgang til de nyeste episodene først. Det koster 49 kroner måneden, samme som en kaffe omtrent, og du bidrar da også til å støtte arbeidet med denne podcasten. Så trykk på lenken under her i beskrivelsen, og bli medlem i dag. Jeg setter stor pris på det. Tusen takk. You ready?
Never.
Never ready.
I'm not ready.
Let's just jump in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Yana, thank you so much for coming to my podcast.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It was a good meeting you the other day at the embassy. We had a good talk and some coffee, and we talked a lot. That was really nice to get to know you.
Yes, it was very mutual.
Yes, thank you. At the same time, I think we have a lot to talk about today because there's so much going on in the world. I feel like from day to day, the situation changes all the time, and it's so complex. But let's start with just how are you? How does it feel to be Israeli in Norway right now?
Israeli in Norway. Well, I'm not Israeli in Norway. I am literally the epiphany of the state of Israel. So I think it's even different.
Yeah.
It's much more different these days. But first of all, I love the Norwegian people because we have a lot of good conversation with the Norwegian people. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that people talk. I appreciate the fact that they ask the questions. Of course, there's also a lot of screaming, a lot of minority, a loud minority, unfortunately, that disturbs the daily a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is great to be in a democratic country and to make sure that it stays democratic.
Yeah, obviously. But do you... let's just a little bit about you first so that people get to know you, because the formality of your position now, because the ambassador Avi, he has left obviously back to Israel. What is your status here in Norway now? Are you chief of the embassy?
So ever since October 7th, there was a very deteriorating rhetorics by the Norwegian government, unfortunately, and it came into some kind of a stress point with the recognizing the state of Palestine. And that was when Ambassador Avi was recalled for consultations in Israel. And at the same time, he's a wonderful diplomat, and he decided that he would finish his post. So as right now, I am the chargé d'affaires, which means in charge of the affairs of Israel in Norway and Iceland.
What's it like in Iceland now?
I don't know. I haven't
Lots of
been there
ice?
yet. I'm really pushing to get there also.
yeah.
It's extremely important to me. And it's very interesting also because every country in the Nordics is a bit different.
Yeah.
So I am also looking forward to seeing a bit more of Iceland and to get to know them and to, to see what we can do together.
Are there many Jews or Israelis in Iceland? Do you know?
Well, the Icelandic population is so little.
Yeah. Do they have a synagogue?
They have a Chabad house.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
yes, they do, which was amazing.
Uh-huh.
And they have a very small community, of course, of the Jewish people. I don't know how many Israelis there are, but mainly I'm guessing people who work, maybe like digital nomads or stuff like that, or people that also married.
Tourists.
Not a lot. Or no, tourists come and go, absolutely. But it's they have a Chabad house, which is amazing. Now Norway also has a Chabad house.
Yes.
It's an historic moment.
Yes, Shaul, who is the leader of the Chabad in Norway, just opened a Chabad house in the center of Oslo.
Yeah. So it's amazing for the Jewish population. Of course, there's not a big Norwegian population, and they have the Demte and the community in Trondheim and also in Bergen. And it's important to be able to have more ways of celebrating and being Jewish.
Yeah.
To broaden the scope, because it's such a big spectrum.
Yeah.
What it means to be Jewish for a lot of people.
Yeah, we will get into that later, I'm sure. But I just want to know, because you're not the appointed ambassador now, but at the same time you are the highest ranking in the embassy.
Yes.
So you are like in the daily, you are chief of what's going on. And,
yes.
And also representing Israel.
So, my main goal my daily goal is to, first of all, to make sure like I keep safety, physical and mental safety of my people at the embassy. This is the most important thing. We all know that Norway has raised its level of threat from 3 to 4 in the scale to 1 to 5, which hasn't gone without unnoticed. So this is my main target. First of all, to make sure that my people feel safe. And then, of course, to continue and try to rebuild a relationship between the people of Norway and the people of Israel.
Yeah.
This is,
Is this some of your tasks as well, to uphold and maintain diplomatic relations with the state of Norway, and now that Avi has left, so that job turns to you?
Of course. We don't get a raise for that.
You should.
No, but of course, this is what I do. This is what we do as diplomats. First of all, it's very important as diplomats to be able to be flexible and agile, and it's part of the requirements, I believe. And so this is what I do. I was number 2 at the embassy. I was privileged to be able to work with Avi and learn from him. And I hope that I learned enough, or at least to maintain a good relationship now and for the upcoming years with Norway.
Yeah. Formally, what's the difference between an ambassador and a chargé d'affaires?
Chargé d'affaires is something that should be temporarily, first of all. And an ambassador is required to have an approval by the government, by the Israeli government. So it will be a decision by the Israeli government to send a new ambassador. And by that, until August, still I'm here, and then I'm going home.
Yeah, but how many years or how long of a time have you been here in Norway?
So this is my 3rd year.
3rd year, yeah.
Yeah. So I spent, first of all, my first posting was in Moscow, where I served for 3 years between 2019 and 22.
What was that like?
It was very interesting. It was, we were there during COVID. And then we were there on the day that they, of course, invaded the Ukraine. I remember I was on my maternity leave. And I was just like, what? Did I not get enough sleep? What is happening? What am I reading now? But it was, Moscow is a beautiful city, first of all. It's very clean. It's beautiful. It's nice, friendly people. But again, there's governments and there's people. So it was very interesting. I was the advisor for culture and science.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting, 3 years. And then, of course, with the sanctions and everything, it took us around 36 hours to get from Moscow to Norway.
Oh, wow.
So I always say I really wanted to come to Norway.
Yeah. Did you have to bike ride over?
Yeah. Okay, fun fact. I don't know how to ride a bicycle.
You don't?
I don't.
Wow. Why not?
I don't. Well, growing up, we could only afford one bicycle, and that was my big brother's.
Oh.
So, and then I tried throughout the years several times here and there. And I think that in your head, when you're grown up, you're already much more aware to everything that can possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
And it kind of deters you. But so I tried, but hopefully I will still try. I was just talking about that for my kids. I'll hopefully be able to.
Maybe this is the perfect time to train in front of the embassy at Parkveien, training on a bicycle, support wheels.
I don't think. I will have to ask my chief security officer what he thinks about this idea, Henrik.
It's a good idea.
But so it took us a long time. It took us we had to take a train from Moscow to St. Petersburg, a night train. So it took quite 8 or 9 hours.
Yes.
And then we had to take a taxi.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have a dog, so we couldn't take a regular bus. So we had to take a taxi for 7 hours from St. Petersburg to Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
And then a flight to Norway. So we really wanted to come to Norway. Thank you, Norway.
That's good. But what was the first year or years here in Norway before October 7th, before all of this happened? Well, what was your experience and your first impression of coming here?
First of all, you have a beautiful country. Beautiful. And you have very nice people. And we knew that we're going to have, we have a troublesome relationship, or we can make it better.
Even before October 7th?
Even before October 7th. We really wanted to make sure that we broaden the scope of the relationship, that we have good things to work on, because at the end of the day, we're two fortunate people.
Yeah.
So to work together to benefit ourselves, but most important, to work together to benefit others.
Yes.
Because I know that also Norway and Israel, we always strive to make it better for the other. So we wanted to do that, and we saw some openings. There were, and we had hope, and I still have hope from a different direction. But we had hope. Things were starting to look a little bit better, but then, of course, October 7th happened, and it's not the same.
Before we get into October 7th and everything, what are like the positive things that you thought that Norway and Israel could work together on? Would you think that I would just think from the top of my head like technology and medicine probably and lots of scientific stuff. What kind of things?
Absolutely. Innovation, talking about medicine, talking about research is very important. Talking about cancer research, for example. I know that it's something also that is very important here in Norway, and we are also very leading in that aspect. So to have the people talking together, the researchers working together, that can be amazing, again, to benefit the world.
Yes.
So if we have the possibility to do that, we should. So cancer research, for example, and telemedicine is, Israel is quite small, right? Norway is very, very long. But we were able to create some kind of systems like we had, for example, during the COVID.
Yeah.
That every 2 seconds you had somebody that was inoculated with,
Yes,
it was really, really not 2 seconds, every 2 minutes was somebody that got
because Israel was one of the first countries with the vaccine, right?
Yeah, not only the vaccine, but the possibility of us to get it to everybody.
Yes, yes.
It was very organized.
Yes.
Very, very organized. And I think it's something that the Norwegian people can benefit from. And we could absolutely work on that together to benefit, again, the Norwegian system. But better, let's work together to talk about desertification. We have the COP right now in Baku happening these hours. Let's work together to fight desertification, to make sure that we are ahead of the climate change, to make sure that we can do because we have a lot that we can do together, especially in these areas that will benefit the others, the less fortunate.
Why is it that and I know that Israel is such a small country, yet so technologically advanced and so much innovation? And why is it that Israel has gotten the stamp of a startup nation and so positive and so much development? Why is that?
I think people can say there's 3 things. First is the fact that we were hungry. When you're hungry, you always strive to get better. So when we reestablished our independence in the state of Israel in 1948, then we were like, okay, we need to make sure that we can sustain ourselves. So first of all, you're hungry, you need to make progress. Second, we have the tendency as Jewish people also, as the majority, is to ask questions. Nothing is as it seems, nothing is for granted. You always ask questions. And by asking questions, you develop. So that's the second thing. And the third thing, I think, is mostly the fact that we are not afraid to fail. We always learn from our failures. And it is very much important in building a startup nation and building this ecosystem. Because if you're afraid to fail, you do not act. But if you're like, okay, I'll fail, but during my failure, I learn something new and I take it to another aspect. That's how you get progress. So I think these are like the 3 most important things of how we do it. And of course, also throughout the years, the state of Israel understood that we need to give more money to that, or we need to push it a little bit. And that's where we are today.
Is it also a part of the culture that makes you also attract smart people who wants to come to Israel? Is it like almost like a Silicon Valley effect that people want to come?
I want to believe that. Yeah, I wish. I want to believe that. I think it's true because, again, at the end of the day, people understand that you need to broaden your horizons and to understand that every conversation that you have, you learn something new.
Yes.
Every conversation. So that means if you bring somebody who is even slightly interested in the same things or you, or not, but you are you can talk in the same rhetorics, for example, or talk the same terms, then you will learn something new and you'll develop from that.
Yeah.
So yes, there was a lot of people coming in, a lot of minds, like how do we do things together? And that's why you see also a lot of international companies that are headquarters or research centers are in Israel, taking the people together and not afraid to fail.
Before I knew that much about Israel, before this whole situation and conflict, before I read up on Israel itself, I think that if I think back, then my impression of Israel was a lot from the movies, like from Hollywood movies. Every time they wanted a scene that was like, how can we symbolize and communicate a high technology and like
Yeah.
the best of the best, pushing the envelope? Okay, a scene from Tel Aviv, and it's like always that skyline with the with the buildings, and
Yeah.
that's what you associated with. I think if you don't know anything.
I'm happy to know
Yeah.
that, because I also thought that people just think of us as still camels.
Oh.
It wasn't that long ago. It was still
Yeah.
camels was part of it. But yes, absolutely. It's very important to, and it's not only Tel Aviv. The high-tech centers or the ecosystem is all around Israel. And it's very important because it creates, also it shrinkens the barriers and the boundaries between peripheral as if and central. It creates like a lot of space. So you have one of the biggest, for example, research centers and small cities of high tech in Beersheba, which is called the capital of the Negev. So it's right next. It says right next to the university. They built a train station to get right there. So you have one of the biggest hubs of technology, including research centers from foreign countries, like from foreign international companies. And then you have the train station and the university. And that is also very important because you always have the new people and students working together with professionals and having this whole circle of always learning from each other. And that is also, I think, something that is very unique and is important because you may be at your company and you're thinking of something and you're already in one path. But then the student that is studying it or came up with another idea is right around the corner, and you can ask him, what do you think? And he'll give you or she'll give you a different perspective. And that is extremely important because they also come up with the needs. What do they believe as a students? Why do they believe is needed? And then they come to the research center and say, this is what we need. How do we make this happen? So it's also very, very important to remember. It's Tel Aviv, it's Beersheba. In Haifa, you have an amazing one. In I forgot the word now.
Jerusalem also?
Yes, also, of course, in Jerusalem, even up in the north. Unfortunately, these days is a bit...
Yes, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
Also, but where did you grow up? What is your story?
Well, so I was born in the USSR.
Where in the USSR?
Today is part of Moldova.
Yeah, Moldova.
Today is Moldova.
I see.
Yes. But we grew up there. I grew up there a little bit. I was born there. I didn't grow up. I came to Israel when I was already during the first Gulf War. And the first thing that we received when we arrived to Israel is, welcome to Israel. Here's a gas mask. Okay, thank you. That was a nice gift. But we were very fortunate. We were very fortunate because there were several, those years, the beginning of the 19s, there were several wonderful projects that brought people and hugged them and adopted them kind of way. So we were fortunate to be part of a program called First Home in Israel. And this was a literally family that adopted families.
It's amazing.
There are my family till this day. It's amazing because it's the best Jewish hospitality you could ever imagine. And it gave us so much. It gave us a foundation, a base, and knowing that you have another family here, even though, people that had to escape sometimes or immigrate from other places, then it's sometimes hard to start from scratch. But here you had a family. It's amazing. And then we lived, and then there's always this conversation about where are you from in Israel? Okay, I'm from the south. I'm from the south part of Israel, not 14 kilometers from Gaza and from a city called Ashkelon. And then I moved to Tel Aviv. So you either have people who move to Tel Aviv or people who move to Jerusalem and a little bit also move to Haifa, which is a beautiful city. But I'm a Tel Aviv girl. So,
what was it like growing up? Or when did you move to Tel Aviv? How old were you then?
No, it was already after school, after school and after my army service, of course.
Yes.
I went to study in Bar Ilan. And that's it. And, it's, I always liked new cultures and I always like to understand and learn new things. So it only made sense to go and, it is like the most international city back in the day. Again, we're talking about quite a while. Yeah. And now all of Israel is very international. But it was like, it was Tel Aviv. It was like what everything was happening. And Jerusalem is wonderful and it's beautiful and it's very, very unique, but it has a different feel to it.
Yes. Can you describe that feel? The difference of feel like Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, Jerusalem?
Jerusalem is the only city in the world that has this special place. That has this special Kedusha. How do I say Kedusha? I was making fun that if I want to say something, I can just say it in Hebrew, and then nobody will understand. But
GPT.
Holiness.
Holiness, yes.
And you can feel it. And it's also a very dramatic city. A lot is happening there all the time. But the history and the holy places and all together, it's one of a kind. So it has its beauty. But also for myself, I wanted to go there for to live at some point. But for me, it's a decision. Because you decide to live in a very different place, in a very unique environment.
And very diverse.
Very diverse. You have everything there. And it's... But you have everything everywhere. Specifically there, I feel... If I would live in Jerusalem, I only want to go to the old city all the time. Like all the quarters. I just want to... Because it's a piece of history. And it's a live piece of history. So this is what you want to... So
a living museum. Almost.
It's absolutely, and and the smells and the food and the food and everything. It's. Have you been to Jerusalem?
Not yet. I want to go. I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go to this event, the Jewish Media Summit, and my flight was on the 17th, but unfortunately it got postponed and the flight was canceled. But it was just postponed, so perhaps in 2025 sometime I will go.
Absolutely.
So I'm really looking forward to that. But what was Ashkelon like growing up there?
It has a beautiful beach.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, we have a beautiful sea, and. It's just, I don't know, just a regular city, I guess. No, it's just a regular city next to the water, which was amazing because it was next to the water and it created a very unique opportunity. I'll tell you, it's very weird. I was part of the student, not student, but like a young association of the youngsters. And I was doing the finance. So bad at math, but so I was doing the finances there, and there was this opportunity of young people from cities around the water, like beach cities, meeting young people from beach cities in Greece. Okay, so we went on a trip. It was people from Ashkelon, from Tel Aviv, from Akko. I love Akko, beautiful city. From from Haifa, from places on the beach, on the water. And we went there for 10 days to Greece to just meet other pupils our age. And I met there somebody who was named Yana. And I remember my amazement saying, "Hi, my name is Yana." She's like, "Hey, my name is Yana too." And I'm like, from Janus, it's a Greek goddess. And I'm like, okay, nice, but it was kind of weird. So it gave me great opportunities. It didn't cost a lot of money back in the day, and it was a wonderful opportunity to meet new people, which is something I always like to do. So I really liked that one. It was it's like, you happen to live on the beach, go and meet other people who live on the beach. Great. Yeah. I'll take that.
It's a good place to meet both physically and geographically, but also meeting people in such a setting. It's so conducive to speech and to friendship, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And we also, in Ashkelon, we also have our national park.
Yeah.
And also has history there. You have Samson. It's like an historic place. So it was also very interesting to talk to people in Greece who are the founders, the new culture of the world kind of thing.
But I feel like that is the crib of our Western society.
Exactly. This is what I want to say. Thank you for saying it in such beautiful words.
But it's the combination, I think, because we both have Athens and everything that Athens has done for us with Plato and Aristotle and all these guys, but also at the same time the Judeo-Christian values from Jerusalem. So I think Jerusalem and Athens together, that is the Western society.
Absolutely.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you were growing up, did you have lots of diverse friends, like from Palestinian areas, from Gaza, from Muslim friends? Were you around all kinds of different people?
Well, in Ashkelon, we were, first of all, we're a lot of different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So like I lived away in the neighborhood. We had myself, we had Jewish from Moroccan descent, Jewish from Ethiopian descent, from everywhere. And also we had a lot of Bedouins in our neighborhood, which was nice. Like, it's an important part of the Israeli society. And I don't know how many, like I didn't ask if they were like Muslims or Christians, but we had Arab friends, but I don't remember asking them actually. No. It wasn't.
That's good.
It wasn't an issue.
It's not important actually.
It wasn't an issue, especially as growing up in terms of the education. Yes. Everybody. It doesn't really matter, kind of thing.
Is it almost like if you're in Israel, then you're on Team Israel, regardless of who you are? If you're like Muslim or you're Christian or you're Jew, the foundation that binds you together is being Team Israel?
So Team Israel is a very big notion, I would say, first of all. And as a democratic society, we are very much diverse.
Yes.
And we are allowed to speak up our minds, which is amazing and should not be taken granted, right? Yes. Having like the real freedom of expression and debate and everything. So I think the beautiful thing about Israel is the fact that everybody would like to make it better.
Yes.
This is what construct to make it better. Because at the end of the day, where do you know a democracy that is not a bit flawed? There's no such thing as democracy.
Definitely.
But as long as you're aware of the fact that we have so many differences inside, how do we make it better? Then you're on the right track. So having these discussions and being, even sometimes if it's heated discussions, they're immensely important for the democratic society. And you put on this also the extra, sensitivity and balance of how do you still maintain Jewish democratic together. It is also very, very important because Israel is a homeland to the Jewish people. And at the same time, it's a beautiful democratic country.
Yes, which is open to all kinds of people from all kinds of faiths.
For everybody.
Yes.
It's open for everybody.
It's so important that people don't misunderstand that because Israel is a Jewish nation. That doesn't mean automatically that it's closed off to everybody else from a different faith, right? That's the wrong way to interpret it.
If anybody chooses to interpret it like that, then I see the problem in them.
Yeah. That's an admission.
This is a problem. But no, of course, Israel is a crazy democracy. As I say, like very loud, very active, we had 5 elections in a very short period of time. Sometimes you say we're a hyper democracy, to be honest. But it's beautiful the way that we still can have our opinions, but have a debate.
Yes, constructive.
On the hardest things sometimes. And it's extremely hard sometimes. It is. But it's okay.
And it feels like that you can have difference of opinions, like really, really tough difference of opinions, but still at the same time, underneath it all be friends yet and be able to like be on the same, not on the same side necessarily, but underneath it all have a love for each other and accept for each other, an acceptance that people have difference of opinion, but we're still one nation. We're still Israelis. We're still Jews. We're still somehow bound together.
This is what I want to believe. I always believed in that 100%, but we've been having some hard years, the last couple of years. And I remember also physically, because I wasn't there. So everything I knew was either from reading or from talking to friends. And again, it's not the same thing as you are in the place. So I remember feeling in the last 2.5 years, not like, do we still have this? Do we still have the togetherness? Like, please tell me, because that's the strength. That's the resilience of the Israeli people. And I would say, I don't know how to be anything other than Israeli. And this is what is the Israeli for me. This ability to discuss, this ability to disagree on the hardest terms and still care for each other and still be the togetherness.
That's so beautiful.
And at some point I was afraid, because I was from afar, I'm afraid that this the fabric has maybe a little bit unwoven, but I have to say that I was in Israel a couple of months ago, and it is there.
Good.
It is there. It is there. It's there in the underneath. There's a lot of noise, but it's there. And it made me feel much more at ease
Yes.
knowing that it's there, because Israel is the only Jewish country in the world. It is a safe haven for a lot of people, and not only for the Jewish people. It's a safe haven for people who want to live in a chaotic democracy, in one of the most culturally rich places in the world, because we have so many people from all around. And we're very unique in that. Of course, you have bigger other democracy, you have the US, every country, right? But this is specifically, we're a very small place, and we have people from all around, all different backgrounds, culture, everything. And it's a new also trend. When we arrived to Israel, for example, and when other people arrived to Israel, sometimes we kind of wanted to leave our different cultural heritage behind, because we wanted to assimilate and to be Israelis, to be this foundation of Israel, an Israeli person. And throughout the years, you could see that people say, okay, I'm already comfortable. I know what Israeli person is. Now I can go back to the musical roots, or like the cultural roots, or the food roots that I brought with me, and I'm not ashamed with anymore. Because back in the day, it kind of sometimes felt, again, it's only my personal experience, like I didn't want to be the Soviet one. I wanted to be the Israeli one. This is what I wanted. And now you could hear Israeli music in all languages. So you have rap in Amharic, and you have music in the women are singing in Yemenite, and you have and you have Arabic, and you have everything, because we're comfortable. We already know what Israel is. So now we can bring back again all this beautiful cultural diversity and put it up, because it is what makes us us. And I love this. This is one of the fact that I can make a playlist and every song will probably be in a different language.
Yes, I heard that playlist. You sent it to me. I've been listening to it. It's beautiful.
It's crazy. It's and this is all Israeli artists.
It's so diverse.
It's so diverse, and it's fun, and you get, and even, what's the most important thing is that it creates more interest. Yes. Like, I love the beat of this song. It looks nice. What does it mean? So you actually go and read what it means, and you educate yourself a bit more now. So I love culture. For me, it's one of the most important things in the world, to be able to unite people. It is an international language, and I hope that we'll be able to keep it that way.
I think in many ways, Israel, from my perspective, is similar to the idea of the United States, which is the home of the free and the land of the brave. Like, the freedom aspect seems really important, that people shall be free. Also the security aspect, of course, that the Jews shall be safe in Israel. But further from that, also that the freedom of expression, freedom of democracy, of opinion, of culture, of everything. Do you find that also, that there's a lot of similarities between the US and Israel?
Well, the US is huge. So I'm guessing there you can see it much bigger. But yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's a melting pot. It's a melting pot, and it's a beautiful chaos, I call it. A beautiful chaos. Yeah. And I think when you look at the US, it's much more distinguished because there's so much people. Then you have like bigger communities of. In Israel, it's right here. Like it's so small.
Everybody's stacked together.
Everybody's stacked together. So it's like,
You have to be diverse, but together on top of each other all the time.
Exactly. It's like you can, especially unfortunately, the last year also a little bit of the physical boundaries have been they shrunk a little bit. Yeah. But this is part of the beautiful. When I was in Israel, you could see, you would go to the store, and I would like to buy something for my family, for example. And there was a family there, a woman and 2 kids, and she wanted to buy things also. And when she tried to, pass her credit card, it didn't pass. Oh. And then she started crying because she said, I'm not from here. I'm from the north. I was like, I can't do this no more. And she was like very fragile. And Everett's like, don't worry. We got you. Take what you need. We got you. But it was just like, to know that this woman has been out of her house for so many months, and she was just like getting stuff for the kids at late night or something, and we got her. She was allowed to let loose. She was allowed to break down, and she knew that we would pick her up.
That is so beautiful, that social fabric right
Exactly.
there. That you got each other's backs.
Exactly. So that's why I felt like even when I was abroad and I saw or heard some things, when I was there, this is what you have.
It's still intact.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
It is.
No.
It is. It's amazing.
Wow. And where do we take it from here? Let's see. I want to talk about the times we're living in now as well, obviously. We can talk about, like, right now, what are your thoughts about what happened in Amsterdam the other day?
I think what happened in Amsterdam, first of all, has several layers, which is important to notice. What happened in Amsterdam was a direct and planned attack against one's nationality or religion. Or religion, right? And it is horrific that it's 2024 and we see this still. I said in a conversation a couple of days ago a very basic thing. We live in a world when you have so much media and social media and disinformation and misinformation and hyper and everything. You put it in one place. And I said very, very basic. In a democratic society that we all wish to live in and to maintain, a government should condemn any sense or any vandalism or any hate speech. Absolutely. It should be condemned. Having said that, it must be condemned when there is literal violence against a person or people only because of their religion or nationality. And I saw that a lot of people in the world, enough also leaders, took that stand, understood that. It's not 1+1. This should be said. This should be condemned. But this must be condemned. And this must be treated in a way that we make sure that this does not happen again. The Jewish communities around the world are very, very vulnerable. Let us not make them the canary again. And the hyper information war around, that's the alarming thing. That's the alarming thing. That people would actually try to bring reasoning that why it happened or why were they at fault. This is a fundamental problem. Again, you can say that and say that at the same time. It's not. It was horrific. It was horrific also to understand how it evolved, and especially how it's been evolving ever since.
Would you call it a pogrom?
Pogrom is a very hard word. It's a very cold, but I guess that when you ask a person, where are you from, or who are you, and then you beat the hell out of it, then yes, it's a pogrom.
Because it was obviously anti-Semitic in its nature.
Yeah. Because you know why? Because for them, it didn't matter who they were as individuals. They thought they were Israelis, for example. Therefore, they're Jewish. Therefore, they're part of the Jewish nation. Therefore, they are to blame for anything. That is why it is anti-Semitic. Because there weren't this individual that may or may not have done something the day before. They were the idea of. They were the idea of the Jewish country.
Yes.
That's why it's anti-Semitic. Yes. They weren't the individual one. So when you take out the individual of a person, you're making him subhuman.
Yeah.
He's not a person anymore.
Yeah.
He's part of an idea. He's part of a collective. He's to blame for anything that, well, probably you just don't like in general.
Yeah.
in general. So but my challenge in calling it a pogrom, because I never wanted to use that word again.
Yes.
That's where it comes
It's a high
from.
threshold to
It's
use it.
such a crazy threshold. And I don't know if a lot of people or enough people actually understand what it means or learn the history of what a pogrom is.
Let's talk about that. What is a pogrom?
Pogrom is Kristallnacht. Pogrom is to go and physically try to kill or humiliate or hurt Jewish people just for being Jewish people, just for existing. Because I say just for existing, because you can decide in the twisted people's mind that make the program that they're to blame for anything that is wrong. Oh, it's not too hot today. It's their fault. Oh, the economy is not good. It's their fault. Oh, they look too rich to me. It's their fault. It's so much, and it belongs in different times. It belongs in the West, in the eastern part of Europe back in the day, and it also belongs in other places in the Arab countries. We cannot forget that. And I thought it won't be here in 2024, but everything is weird in 2024. So much is wrong around the world. And at the end of the day, I think what we are lacking is, again, humility, first of all, and being able to say, well, maybe I do not know everything. And maybe I should ask a question. Maybe I should not assume automatically. And one of my hardest things here also in Norway that I'm trying to struggle, and also I'm asking everybody, how is it, again, not the majority, because I don't think the majority of people in Norway, but how is it that people are so easily willing to believe that Israel wants to go and kill people? And I really ask myself, and it's an interesting question that I don't really have the answer to yet. Because why? Why is it so easily believed that no matter what, before anything, of course they'll do it? And at the same time, when this very loud minority shouts in the street, Intifada revolution, there is only one solution, do you really know what it means?
What does Intifada mean? What is that?
Killing, rampage, bombing of cafes, going on a bus and blowing yourself up so you can take as many people as possible with you. This is Intifada. It's a call for violence against Jewish people. And when you call to globalize it in the streets of every Western country in the world, you're importing a very bad problem. And not that it is the same yet, hopefully you'll not get there, but we saw the footage of Amsterdam the couple days next with the train. So this time they didn't have people inside, right? But if that happened, what's the difference? What's the difference for every person that decides that he is in the right, first of all, that his extreme views are justified, and therefore he can go and have and make and do an extreme act of violence for whatever he believes in. Whatever he believes in. And we saw it, unfortunately, it's not only against Jewish people. Now we're talking about Jewish people, but in general, when people are so consumed in their own place and in the extremism, they believe that they are in the right to go and act physically and violently against the other. They created the other and they put on the other all faults.
Instead of having it on your own shoulders. It's
Instead
so much
of
easier.
understanding, maybe I should look in the mirror. Maybe I should think twice. Maybe I also have something to do with this. Maybe I contributed. But it's a polarized world, unfortunately. And also for human nature, it's easier to do black and white, even though the world is so complex. But people just it makes it easier to go through the world. It makes it easier to understand things. It makes it easier to just live the daily because you don't have the time to really go into the complexities. So, yeah.
And what was so horrible also is that there were reports from the Israeli and the Jewish people who were being targeted by this, that they experienced that Dutch police were just standing by watching this. Not in all cases, but there were some incidents where people said that the Dutch police didn't interfere.
I think when you saw the government or the people from the Dutch, they were very clear on what happened and they condemned it very clearly, which is wonderful, which is very, very good. It's a taking responsibility.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I understand that when sometimes things happen in the moment itself, it's not always what's the right thing to do. And fortunately, the last year showed that because some people, again, with this hyper media and everybody has a phone and, so sometimes, unfortunately, also law officers or people are just like, what am I supposed to do now? And will I be blamed? Unfortunately, but this is, we need to remember, will I be blamed for something? Yeah. Because it's a struggle. This is one part of the struggle of the democracy. We are in a very serious struggle in several aspects.
And also I saw the beautiful thing of how Israel responded and Netanyahu responded by saying, we're sending planes. We're going to go get our citizens back. We're going to help them.
Yes.
That goes to show that strong fabric of having each other's backs and that strong social fabric of Israel. So that was beautiful to see.
It is. And I think this is one of the most important things when we talk also about the hostages.
Yes. We must talk about the hostages. How many people are still being held hostage now?
So we have 101 hostages still in Gaza, including 2 kids and including 13 women. They've been kept hostage for more than 403 days.
That's just insane.
It is.
Have you had any kind of life signal from them? Do we know how many are still alive? Do you have any kind of information?
From the information we have, we know that at least 36 of them are already not alive. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the reasons that Israel and the government and the Israeli people are shouting very loud, saying, where is the international community in asking for the well-being of the hostages?
Yes.
Where is the outrage for 13 women still being held hostage? Where's the outrage of 2 kids being held hostage? Where's the outrage for the elderly?
Yeah, where is
it? Where's the demand to go and check about their well-being, to know if they're alive, to know if they're being treated, to know if they're wounded, to know anything? And unfortunately, it's also part of the psychological torture that the terror organization of Hamas is doing to us. When it showed videos, for example, of people dying, or they released videos of the 6 hostages after they murdered them in cold blood with shots to their heads, and afterwards they released their videos. This is part of the psychological terror and warfare that the Israeli people are being subjected to. It's the Israeli people, it's the families of the hostages, it's the ones that fight to understand, how do we bring back security to our people? What is the sense of security? How do I really bring back and I myself, as I said, I know what it is like to have 14 kilometers from Gaza. I know what it is to live under rockets. I have friends. I know people that lost friends and family on October 7th. Each and every individual in Israel knows somebody or lost somebody. That's the way it is. And I know at the same time that we need to get the hostages back, first and foremost, for the fabric of the society. That's the only time when we can start healing. And also that the sense of security that we thought we knew, it wasn't always a regular security, because people are already, in Sderot, 20-year-old kids, that's what they know from the moment they were born, that they have 15 seconds to run for shelter. That's what they know. How crazy is that? But something we lived with, unfortunately. But now, how do you tell the people of the Gaza envelope, the people that suffered the most on October 7th, you can go back. When will be the sense of security then? How can you tell them you can tuck your kids to sleep and it will be okay? How can you tell the kids, don't worry, there's no monsters under the bed? Because they've seen monsters. Some of them have seen their parents being killed in front of their eyes. How do you tell these kids it's safe? So it's, and there's no answers. There's no right or wrong answers. It's very complex situations. But without bringing back the sense of security to the society of Israel, how do we go next? Where do we go next?
Is this also a very difficult topic within Israel? I've seen lots of demonstrations and people are upset, of course, that the hostages aren't released, and probably also a lot of anger towards the government for feeling that the government isn't doing enough to try to get them out. Is this causing a lot of difficult emotions and debate in Israel?
It is. It is causing a lot of debate because at the end of the day, we all understand that we need the hostages back.
Yeah.
But we can't maybe all agree on the right way to do it. You know, we say, first of all, we had a ceasefire on October 6th. And then we had another ceasefire when the Hamas terror organization promised to give us all the women, all the kids. They promised. Oh, and surprise, surprise, they didn't deliver. They try to portray that some as a humanitarian, look at us, how humane we are. You kidnap people from their houses. You killed elderly women. You kidnapped kids. What are you talking about? You can't undo this. Unfortunately, in the world, they did somehow. Yeah, look at what they did. They gave them back. Still. There is a debate, but I want to, plant the thought for people for a second there. If they would like to blame the government, for example, then they even should fight harder to get the hostages back. Because once we have the hostages, you'll have a different dynamic. So if that's the reason people say that, okay, then fight even harder. In the world, talk about the hostages at all given time. We have a beautiful community here in Norway that every month marks that and put yellow ribbons. This is what you need to do. You need to continue put it in the headlines.
Why is it you think that people aren't talking about this? Why isn't the Red Cross or the UN talking about this? Why aren't women's organizations talking about this? What's the reason? Because they would talk about it if this was Israel taking like Palestinian hostages and keeping them for 400 days, the world wouldn't shut up about it at all. That would be the only thing we'd hear about.
I had a very hard discussion about this a couple of days ago, about the women, about the fact that Israel, as the state of Israel, the Israeli women and strong women around the world had to actually have a campaign saying, "Me too, unless you're a Jew," or "Believe all women, believe Israeli women." We got to a point that we have to have a campaign to actually tell the UN women or other organizations, why don't you believe them? Henrik, I can't tell you why we're there, but I can tell you that it is extremely disturbing. It's extremely disturbing when I have a conversation and somebody tells me, yeah, but you didn't let impartial investigation team inside to check the forensics that it really happened. Wait, what? I don't understand. You know what? It's the government. It's the government that did it, like that said it happened. You know what? You don't want to believe the government? Never mind. But talk to the people. Talk to the people. The people that the forensics, these are volunteers. They went to help and try to figure out what happened on October 7th and what happened to these women. And these are specialists that don't have a political affiliation, and you don't believe them. So don't tell me it's about the government. Don't. And this hurts the most because this is just amazing to me.
It's almost like Holocaust revisionism, right? Where they try to say that no, Holocaust never happened and it was the Jews' own fault. It's like that's
Yeah.
where the anti-Semitic aspect comes in, because that is such a strong signal of anti-Semitism to me, is that when you start blaming the Jews for being killed
Yeah.
themselves, like that's your own fault. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's just anti-Semitism now. Just file it under anti-Semitism.
Yeah. But filing, yeah, it is a very interesting world we live in today, and we get a lot of mail, and we have to differentiate. So we have
Yeah.
anti-Israel, which is sometimes very clear, and we have anti-Jew hatred, which is
Yeah.
sometimes very, very clear, and sometimes you have in the middle. So you have to understand which one is it. But it's important to also remember that, unfortunately, what I saw is that we also get a lot of love. We do. It's not loud, but we do, and we know it, and we feel it, and we're thankful for it. The way that the hate mails are written, especially the anti-Semitic ones, and this is are so evil, and they are so imaginative. Like some people put so much effort into imagine and to wish for horrific things.
What kind of things could
I'm
this
not,
be?
no, I'm not, no. I'm not going to say it like this. You're more than welcome to come and I'll show you. But it's amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's amazing how imagination and how much effort you put into hate.
But that's what also that drives me to think about October 7th in itself. I read this book that I was given at the embassy.
The testimonies?
Yeah, the testimonies. I have them here. Yeah, Testimonies Without Boundaries, written by Alon Penzel. Is that the right way to say his name? Which is like the most horrific stories that he has written down. It's important. It's terribly difficult read.
Yeah.
But it's important to say the truth just as it is.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, because you were saying how creative and imaginative people are with their evil. And then you should see what Hamas did on October 7th regarding being imaginative with their evil.
Yeah.
And it's just that I find it so difficult to comprehend how people can sink so deep to become that evil, to become so creative with their evil acts as Hamas did on October 7th. It's like it would be one thing if they would have gone in and shot people, which would be horrific in itself, right? But they didn't stop there. They wanted to torture people and found joy in torturing people.
They wanted to humiliate.
Humiliate, right?
They wanted to humiliate. They wanted to humiliate not only the people, sometimes also the bodies, but the nation, the notion of itself of an Israeli. They wanted to taunt it, But we can look in the way and say, first of all, these were radical people. And I have faith in humanity. I have faith in the people. I wish that they'll be able to take this imagination and put it into good use. We need to make sure that we give them the framework to do that. And in a very polarized world where we are, maybe it's difficult. So let's look at ourselves and understand, how do we create a better framework to bring this to imagine. I'm not talking about the terror that they did, Hamas. I'm talking about the hate mail. To bring that into a better place. Because what happened on October 7th, and I say it not once, not twice, unfortunately, but reality is much more far-fetched than fiction. The human mind is capable of anything, apparently. We saw it, we knew it, we wanted it to not be true anymore. We wanted to believe that we all evolved as a society, as a civilization. But when you have radical anything, then you're in big trouble. This is where we have to, as a Norwegian society, as an Israeli society, as a Western society, to take a breath and say, how do we make sure that we are upheld and we keep our beautiful democracies? It's not a given. It's not a given. How do we make sure that we educate for tolerance, for basic. How do we educate not to hate? How do we educate people to see the other person as a person? And I believe that it is still possible to do. At the end of the day, we need to have people talking to people. So basic these days. And so sometimes, and when you look at especially kids, so there are people saying, no, they sit in their computer all day, they don't go around, they don't mix, but they have very extreme sometimes conversations and they are getting to know people from so many different places in the world through their computer, which is amazing. Let's take that and let's pour good content into it. Let's make sure that we always find the way to talk about what unites us other than what divides us, because otherwise we'll stop talking. And then what's the point in this beautiful civilization that we have? Oh, that was a big thing. I'm sorry.
No,
but it was
true.
just
It's true. But where do you think that the level of hate comes from? Because that's such a big debate also, because I feel like a lot of people try, if they have a simple framework, like we're talking about black and white framework, if they have a really simple lens to see this through, then they think this is about land areas and about people being oppressed, feeling oppressed in Gaza, and of course this is going to happen. This was like a pressure cooker. So the stories that are in this book, of course that was going to happen because they feel oppressed, and it's like that narrative doesn't work, and it's absurd to think that a fight over land areas and geography would result in the stories of October 7th.
So first, let me tell one thing to these people, for example. Rape is not resistance. Kidnapping kids from their house, it's not resistance. Burning people alive, it's not resistance. And the fact that people are trying to excuse horrific behaviors, again, talks about the character of the people. And the only thing I can say to them, take a good look in the mirror, first and foremost. And understand that you're advocating for horrific things that you would never, ever advocate for against any other person. And then think to yourselves, why? Because at the end of the day, what happened on October 7th? I remember October 7th, I was having breakfast with my oldest, and I opened my Twitter. I shouldn't, it's Saturday morning. I shouldn't, and I still, work is. I opened my Twitter. I remember seeing a video of a woman that we all will learn to know as Shani Luke on the back of a truck with a lot of armed terrorists around her. And she was laying with her face down and with her legs. And I remember telling my husband, told him, she can't be alive. Like the way that she is, she can't be alive. And then I showed him, and then he said, no, I think she is. And the fact that we had this conversation is fundamentally problematic. And I remember seeing that. And then you see the people going, it's a video. You see the people going and spitting on her. And this was the first thing I saw. And of course, everything came pouring. And I remember even seeing the video of the people running in the deserts from the festival, for example. And I thought to myself, oh, this is a beautiful, crazy, but this is a beautiful shot. Because I didn't believe it was true. Like my mind wouldn't grasp that this is actually happening at this point of time, that you have people running in the desert from trucks with RPGs and with Kalashnikovs just shooting at them. My mind couldn't grasp it. And as the day folded, I remember I was going, I think it was Anarcho Radio, I don't remember what, and I said, we would, every person in Israel is affected by what happened today, and we will only learn, the atrocities will only unfold I didn't know, Henrik, how right I was. I couldn't imagine even how right I was. It's you're just like lost for words at some point, because you find yourself, I'm not supposed to explain to you why is this fundamentally horrible. Just look at it. And when you have people claiming, so many crazy conspiracies, there were so many crazy conspiracies, I think it's pointless. Like, I'm not going to fight that. Like, you want to be conspirative? Fine. They literally put cameras on themselves to video everything. It's not something you do usually, right? They did that. They liked it. They wanted to go back and look at what they did, because otherwise, why would you do it? If not to humiliate, if not to show it to others after.
It's almost like a trophy, right?
It is. Or you had the famous phone call of the person calling to him, Mom, I killed 10 Jews. I killed 10 Jews. Look at them. I killed them with my bare hands. Fundamentally wrong. So the hate that brought them to do that is, I'm sorry, it's beyond me. It's, of course, something that has to do with education. It's, of course, something that has to do with radicalization, but it's a terror organization that is forgoing anything as if a goal in his head, because they called it the Al-Aqsa floods, as if Israel is trying to change something. They wanted to call it because they wanted to gather everybody around it, to rally also, the Arab population in Israel. They wanted to rally the West Bank, and they couldn't. They didn't. Because it was so far-fetched. And because what they did there, no person can stand behind and say that was part of a resistance. No sane person can do that. You know who the people who say that it was okay? Because it's the people who don't believe that it happened.
Yeah, because they can't believe, because they can't make that logical
They
consistent.
Can't, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like, no, it didn't happen. The Jews say it happened. It didn't happen like that. They didn't do that.
And then they go in further and say, no, it was the Jews killing their
own people. Yes, that's like the highest.
Hannibal directive. They had to kill themselves, because that would make Israel be able to go into Gaza and kill all the Palestinians.
Exactly, as if the entire
so messed up.
The entire goal is to go and kill. Why?
Yeah.
But this goes back to, why would you believe such a thing? Why would people want to believe that a nation that really, held its hand in peace for so many times, did hard sacrifices throughout the years? Why would you want to believe that? Why is it so easy to believe?
I can't explain that in any other way than deep anti-Semitism lying there like blood libels in the society where we have from the Middle Ages and even earlier, how people were saying, hey, Jews, they sacrifice children and all these kinds of things, which has, in a certain way, just been such a popular thing to say up through the centuries. And then it has just festered, I guess, in society, laying there underneath it all.
Just waiting for something
to unlock it.
But again, this is the thing. You're waiting for if that was the case, for example, then you would have thought that something that has to do with the Jewish population in a certain area would trigger it. Not what a country that has, by accident or not, a majority of Jewish people. But it's a country.
Yeah.
It's a sovereign country in a different place of the world, right? So by that logic, it will be okay also to say that for these conspirators, or it would make sense for them to say, then people should blame Muslims on the streets for whatever Iran is doing for their own people,
exactly.
or what Assad did to its own people. Because this is look what they're doing too. This is what they did. We should go and harm Muslims because this is what they did.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Group identity, right?
But let's talk to more positive. Do we have?
Let's do what do we have that is positive
What do we-
nowadays? Let's see. Struggle to find
Struggling
something.
to find. Yes, let's
something,
find
something.
what we have.
What is positive is what happened right before October 7th with the Abraham Accords,
Yeah.
trying to get peace between and development and cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts about that?
So first of all, the Abraham Accords, we signed them with the UAE and with Bahrain, and also afterwards with Morocco and with Sudan in 2020. We started with Bahrain and UAE, and these are beautiful peace initiatives, because they understand a very fundamental thing. First of all, Abraham, we're all sons and daughters. We all have a place here. Fundamental truth, historical truth that is being ignored by so many people. And here we're saying, yes, we stand proud together to say that. That's fundamental first. And then we all understood the importance of education and the importance of pluralism and the importance of a freedom of religion for all. So it is in the UAE that you have a center for all the three monotheistic religions. It's a beautiful center of worship that anybody can worship from the big three monotheistic ones. Come, we all have a space, we all have a place. And educating people on the history. Because the problem with hating somebody or not is that you don't know them. You don't know. You only heard or saw. You get to know more people. So you have exchanges, you have students exchanges, you have things that you add, for example, in the curriculum. Things that you didn't teach in the past, but are important to learn. Part of history, for example, like the Holocaust. It's an important part of history, like it or not. It is. And everybody should learn it. Everybody should understand what happened. I love the Abraham Accords. And I still have hope, of course, that we are able to do that with Saudi.
What was the contents of the Abraham Accords? What's the point with them? What are they meant to do?
So what I think is, first, the most important thing is first to establish the fact that we all have a place here. Because sometimes, unfortunately, people think that Israel should not exist, or they go exist somewhere else. Well, I can't. This is my historic land. And this is the first thing. And what was amazing about the Abraham Accords was that it was a very outside of the box thinking by then the Trump administration. Okay, I see this region. A lot is happening there. What can we do to make it better? And then you go to a basic transaction as if question of like, what do they need? What can they give them? And how can we work together? So the basic here is communication. The foundation is communication and collaboration. What can we do together to make sure that we bring stability to the region? Because this region, regardless to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the region is still, you have the Arab Spring a couple of years ago. You have the Assad regime still right here. You have ISIS that, with all the respect, they're not gone. Have whatever is going. So what do we do to bring stability? First, we start with educating. First, we start with talking. First, we start with communication and with understanding how can we benefit from each other through joint research, joint defense, for example. And we saw that very, very clearly when Iran attacked Israel twice this year. And the circle of peace, that's how I refer it, the circle of peace came together to make sure that it doesn't happen like this, to make sure to. And this is what it is. How do we live together in peace? We first start with acknowledging each other, talking to each other, and understanding how we can learn from each other. This is the basic of it. To bring prosperity and peace to the region. And that's also what they signed. There's the whole statement based on shared values.
Because it seems like a lot of these developing or these modern nations like Saudi Arabia, in a lot of sense, when it comes to like tourism, and they want to have business, they want to be perceived as a more modern nation,
Yeah.
I feel. It seems like they're tired of all this war and fighting and rockets and missiles and terrorism. It feels like they don't want to be a part of that anymore. They don't want to have, especially terrorism, they strike down hard on that in their countries. They
Yeah.
don't want to have these kinds of Hamas groups at all.
But who would
It
like?
seems like that, yeah, right?
Who would
So it's important, I think, when one tries to understand the Middle East, that not all nations are like Iran. Iran is a outlier. It's a different kind of agenda, different kind of wish for the nation. They have a destructive kind of agenda, it seems. And then you have Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. It seems like they actually want to be constructive, like Israel.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that also? Is this a more is it a general feel in the Middle East that people want to be constructive, have less terrorism, have less wars, and try to create something instead?
In the region that we live in, yes. First of all, because we all face the same challenges. We all understand, like we have a lack of water sometimes.
Yeah.
We have the same challenges and we need to work together. One word about Iran, even though we should talk about Iran in general. Yeah, not only here,
definitely.
Henrik, but in
Yeah.
general, people do not talk about the regime
Yes.
in Iran enough. And this is a very important distinguish that I want to make. The people of Iran, most of
Yes.
the people of Iran, they are also fighting for their own rights.
Yes.
And that is something that nobody's discussing enough. They're fighting for their own rights. They used to be a wonderful, beautiful, cultural, modern country.
I remember seeing pictures of Iran from like the 50s, 60s.
Or even, the beginning, yeah.
Studying at the universities,
Yes.
so free. The women didn't have to wear any headpiece. They were like modern country.
The culture, the
Yeah.
literature that came out of the
Yes.
music, so
Yeah.
much beautiful things. And you still have it. And you still have that. And for the people. So first of all, yes, the regime is a very destabilizing force in the region. And most of the other countries also in the Gulf understand that.
Yes.
There's also the aspect of the religion here in the Muslims inside. So you have the Shia and you have the Sunni. Most of the countries in the Gulf, they are Sunnis. They view the world from a different perspective of Islam, a constructive perspective on Islam. The Shia militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, they just want to disrupt,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And they are being like puppets in the hands of Iran that is orchestrating this whole ordeal. All of it.
Why does Iran hate Israel so much? Because they say that Israel is little Satan and the US is
The
big
big
Satan,
Satan,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
they have a doomsday watch in Tehran, which
Yeah.
kind of counts down to when they can destroy Israel. It seems why? Why is that obsession with destroying Israel?
You know, it's amazing to me that people listen to what, for example, leaders of Hamas say sometimes, but never listen all the way. Same thing with Iran. Even here, people are talking about we should hug Iran back to the nations. We should, do it in like this. They are literally calling for a destruction of a sovereign country that it doesn't even border with them, just because. Just because we are not Shia, just because we are Jewish, just because we are able to defend ourselves. This is a very important aspect of the region. You need to show strength. You cannot seem to be weak in our region. I don't know why people don't understand the severity of what Iran is saying and what it's doing. And it's not only about Israel. People who care about the Ukraine, people who care what happens next in Europe, people who care about the sovereignty of Ukraine should probably pay attention to Russia's best friends.
Yeah, because Russia and Iran has a good deal going with weapons and
absolutely.
money.
Not only that, basic thing, which is very important, sanctions.
Yes.
As if they're both sanctioned, right?
Yes.
But Iran has been under sanctions for quite a while, and still, the sanctions worked. But they could do better. It should be pushed more. Because in the meantime, what happens is that Russia is learning how to bypass, how to bypass the sanctions, how to continue, business as usual. They're building manufacturing factories that will manufacture Iranian drones. Yeah, that makes sense. How?
It's crazy.
How does that make sense? And these are the drones that are attacking the Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah.
So if anybody cares about you, and I know everybody cares about the Ukraine, it also leads there. Don't look only at Russia. Russia is a big actor. Of course, it has its own. The question is, what will we do with Russia the day after? Hopefully, the war will end as soon as possible. And then what we will do? That's a question nobody answers. But probably you should think about it already now, because look at Russia's friends. Look at Iran. Look at the new news that came out that how many soldiers from North Korea?
Yes. So they are also involved there. But what is North Korea's interest in helping Iran? Is it, I've heard it's about technology, that they need to be able to purchase weapons from different countries.
I actually don't know. I
Yeah.
can go and check. I don't know exactly why. But at the end of the day, I think it's like, it's the same thing as you have with countries that are less developed, for example, and a country comes to and tell them, there's two options. One country comes and says, I will help you develop if you show me development in values of democracy or in values of this. You show me that you're bettering yourself. And there will be another nation that comes and says, you want to develop, we'll just give you the money and you give us some land. What will they choose? The one that goes with strings attached, or the one that has no string attached? They don't need to actively do something or to better themselves in order to get this money or whatever. They will go to the easy. So maybe that's what North Korea is doing. Nobody from the world is coming to them and say, and it's the same neighborhood. It's easy.
How much do you feel like October 7th was orchestrated, or at least motivated or financed by Iran? How much of a part was Iran in that?
It was completely financed by Iran. Orchestrated in the big picture, of course, of, everything. You do whatever it takes to take down Israel, But at the same time, I don't think that they told Iran exactly when they're going to do it. Because we have a small gap of information here that we all need to pay attention to. First of all, the normalization between Saudi and Israel, together with the US, was very, very, very extremely close. And two things happened there. For the first time in the Abraham Accords, it wasn't only Israel and Saudi and the United States. The Palestinian Authority understood that they can gain something from it. They should be a player there. Hamas couldn't have it. They couldn't have the Palestinian Authority to maybe accomplish something for the Palestinian people, because then their fight is not good, because they are taking the glory as if. And that's why they did what they did at that time. And think about how horrible it is for the Palestinian people. In order to undermine any development that would be made by a different actor for the Palestinian people, we will go and wage a horrific massacre that we know will result in a horrible war for you. This is what happened.
It seems like that is what they wanted too, because they know that Israel has to react, and they know that Palestinian civilians will lose their lives, and they know that the international community will demonize Israel for the civilian losses.
We have a lot of support around the world who understands the complexities of what we're doing. And the laws of war and international, law and humanitarian law, it's things that Israel is completely obliged to and committed to. It's very, very hard to do that at the same time to make sure that we are dismantling the military capabilities of Hamas and their infrastructure. Because the infrastructure is literally, how many wars do you know that we not only have the terrorist embedded in the infrastructure above, but also underneath? the amount and the length of the tunnels. If people do not understand what is fundamentally wrong with a government that is building under thousands of kilometers of tunnels, not for the sake of you people, but for the sake of them, if people don't understand the problem of that, I don't know how to tell them differently. It's so much money that put into that. And that's money from the international community. Money that put into the wrong things. In Israel, we have, if I remember correctly, I have to check. But it was either the late 90s or the beginning of the 2000s that you have to build a safe room inside the apartment.
Yeah.
Not in the building. When I grew up, we only had in the building the first floor. So we had to run from the third floor to the first one. And when I was in the last floor, we had to run down. So I think, if I remember correctly, it's either from 97 or beginning of the 2000 that you must have a safe room inside the house, the flat itself. That also says something about the neighborhood we live in and how much we make sure, but at least it's a bit of a neurotic way of thinking, but it's a way of thinking that is accustomed to the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
But we make that because we want to save and protect our people. That's what you do when you protect your people. When you want to protect your people, you unfortunately have to also displace them from their own city, from their own country, from their own houses up north to make sure that they're out of harm's way until you fight Hezbollah. After a year of rockets, a year, they started firing at us on October 8th. It was a year that we were biting our tongue pretty strong. That's what you do when you care about your people.
I had a woman here actually from Israel who was visiting with her family here in Norway. Her name is Galit. I haven't published the episode yet, but we have recorded it. And she is from the north of Israel and has been displaced, like, I don't know how many, is it like 60, 70,000 Israelis who don't have their home anymore?
Yes, yeah.
And her home was there. And we were talking about how beautiful her home was, how much she loved it, how much she was working in the garden. She lived in a kibbutz up there. And how she hasn't been in her home for a year and how difficult it is, right? And her daughters who are in the IDF and just a situation for her. And I think a lot of people don't know that because we're very focused on displacement of like Palestinians who don't have a home and so, but we're not focused on, like, this is happening in Israel too, like 60, 70,000 people don't have a home for over a year.
Right? But that's only from the north.
That's only from
the
north.
You have more than 100,000 also from the south.
Yes.
And these are, again, two communities, two very strong. It's the front lines.
Yeah.
So how do you bring them back? How do you start rebuilding?
And I heard that a lot of, because from Norway or the Western media, we get this picture that everybody's demonizing Netanyahu for being like, oh, he's this, especially in Norway, that he is this guy who just wants more blood. He loves war. He wants to fight. He's like demonized like that. But in reality, actually, what I've understood is that inside of Israel, internally in Israel, he's actually criticized for not being aggressive enough, for not starting a war with Hezbollah earlier, for letting them attack from the 8th of October that you said, and trying diplomatic relations for how to avoid a war. Like, he could have started a war with them like October 8th, right away, but he didn't do that. He wanted to seek the diplomatic route. And people aren't talking about that here in Norway, that he actually waited until now to attack them.
But it's not him, it's everybody. Like, Israel tried the diplomat, because we have the resolutions, the UN resolutions, right? 1559, 1701. Implement it. By all means, go and implement it. Make sure. But you know what? At the end of it, now that we're there at the southern part of Lebanon, and we see the immense infrastructure and planning, and already, it's a good thing that we went in at this point. Because otherwise we wouldn't have seen this, because nobody would have told us.
And
Not Unifil would have told us. Nobody would have told us this,
and
right?
Unifil must have known about it because we saw the pictures
It's like
of the towers.
150, like 200 meters from you. And when somebody digs a tunnel 20 meters down, you probably should notice if all you're doing is peacekeeping, watching, you're looking, you're seeing. Shouldn't be hard. But the thing is that what you said very correctly is also about what happens in Israel. There's no focus in anywhere about anything that's happened in Israel. The public discussion is very, very complicated. It is very complicated because we all can agree that we need the hostages back. How to get there? We have no idea. We all agree that we need to return the security. How do we get that? We don't know. We need to figure it out as we go. Unfortunately, of course, there should be like the light at at the end of the tunnel. Where do we go? How do we do that? But every time, as you said at the beginning, things swift and change so quickly that it's sometimes hard to understand. And yes, people sometimes, all kinds of different voices in Israel. Some say that you should have done it before. These are people who you can't blame them again, right? Because they've been out of their house for a year. They were out of education systems. So their children are suffering. There's so much going on inside that nobody really talks about. Nobody talks about the reservists that's been in the reserves for months on end. What's the toll that it takes on them? What's the toll on their families, on their businesses, on everything? It's going to take many, many generations, first of all, to understand what happened to us and to heal as a society. But yes, there's a lot of... nobody knows how to do... There's no good war. War is bad. War is horrific. But every leader needs, for the sake of its society, for the sake of its people, to make sure that he can bring them security. That's the basic. And I know that people in a lot of places in the world do not understand it because they don't lack it. You take for granted security. Given the last 2 years, more countries are understanding what may be a security threat. A bit more, but not in the magnitude of the Israeli people. So it's a good start. I wish you would never know what it is. But maybe just, again, being humble enough and saying, I don't know how it is to feel this insecure or to lack the basic sense of security. Tell me. That makes sense, right? Just tell me what it really means for you.
Also, I listened to a podcast about Israeli politics and society, which is called Call Me Back with Dan Senor.
Okay, yeah.
And I listened to it yesterday. I was driving to Arendal to do a conversation there. And he was talking about now that Netanyahu has changed the minister for defense, and that is actually a very big thing in Israel. It's almost at the same level as prime minister. It's a very important position.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that he changed him out?
I hope that the leadership is doing whatever it can to make everything better for the... it also means that I have a new minister.
Yeah.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs. I hope that it's for the better of. I hope that, at the end of the day, if we want to make sure that we end the war and that we bring security back, that we dismantle their capabilities and that we bring our hostages back, whatever it takes in terms of... let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be.
Do you feel like Netanyahu, as a leader, does he have a lot of acceptance from the people of Israel? Do many people support him? Do you have any polls on that?
I don't have polls. No? I'm checking what happens in the polls here. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm I work here, but I think that first of all, the government stays. The government is strong. It works. Hopefully, it can work better in terms of providing assistance and providing for the civil society. Absolutely, I have my reservations sometimes, but it's. I don't know what the polls. You should check and tell me.
I will check because it's interesting regarding, because what I've heard is that like in Israel, it's like we talk about living, breathing democracy. Everybody's fighting about different opinions and whatever. But in wartime, that people come together and try to be unified in their support. So it'd be interesting to hear like if because it seems like from the outside, it seems like everybody's just demonizing Netanyahu, that everybody hates him, that everybody. But the impression that I've got from people living in Israel saying that no, everybody supports him now.
So this is the thing. When you say it's interesting when you said the impression now here.
Yeah.
Why is that impression?
Yeah, I think it's because people demonize Israel, so they demonize.
But do you see it from the media, or do you see it from
the media mostly?
So this is the question. I always say that it's very interesting, but it looks like that in the Norwegian media, it's not all of it. You have very good journalists in Norway, but sometimes it's feel maybe in the national broadcast that there's like only two aspects of Israel. You see the very extreme left, and a very extreme right. And the majority of Israel in the middle are absent. And in this majority of the people of Israel, you have this wide spectrum of opinions and thoughts, but it is complicated, but it is inside the majority. And you can have people, the same family, disagreeing on something, but still agreeing on other things. Maybe they disagree maybe on some of political or whatever, but they still have a joint goal. They can disagree about this, but where's that? I'm liking that in terms of to understand a bit more of Israel.
The fact that Donald Trump was elected to be the next president in the US, was that a positive thing for Israel?
First of all, Biden is a true friend of Israel. He was the first leader to come to Israel after October 7. He gave us unwavering support. And we will forever be thankful for him. He stood and said, deteriorated the others, don't. If you think of doing something, don't. He literally sent troops, not troops, but the warships to show, don't do it. So first of all, extremely grateful. And it's a policy, Israel and the United States, we are friends. We have a strategic alliance, but not only strategic alliance, we have shared values. And we always strive to look at the things we share and what unites us. And we have so much things together, so much things in common. So I believe also with this administration, with the Trump administration, we will only try to take the policies and take the principles and to make a better future for all of us. Again, for all of us in the region, but for all of us in the world. So I think, Trump took the embassy and put it in Jerusalem. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. That's a statement. It was a very important statement.
Was that appreciated in Israel?
It is very appreciated. Because again, we can talk about borders. That's not the issue. The issue is, first of all, acknowledging a very basic fact. That move together with the Abraham Accords, that's a policy. That means you have a place to exist. I believe in your place to exist, and we will fight for it together in peaceful ways, in the diplomatic ways that we can to make sure that we have that. So I look forward to working with the United States the same way that we've been working with them all the time, throughout the years. It's going to be interesting. I believe that every people deserves leaders that care for them. So if the population, if the people of the United States entrusted their vote for Trump, then I hope that he will do first and foremost whatever is good for its people, for his own people. That's what a leader should do.
It seems to me that he is a really good friend for Israel because, as you said, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem and he was the initiator behind the Abraham Accords.
Absolutely.
So it seems that he will be, from my perspective, he will be good for Israel in the situation that we're in now, hopefully.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts about the future now? Are you nervous about the impending attack that Iran has said that they will launch? Do you think they will still launch it, or are you afraid of that?
After the time that we retaliated, I don't remember which one. I'm sorry. It kind of feels weird, right? Yeah. But they said that we didn't hit anything. It was nothing. I don't believe that. Pretty sure we did a good job. Even the fact that we were in their airspace and get into their airspace, it took some hours. Pretty good job. Yeah. If you ask the Israeli people, we're not afraid. We're not afraid. It also became like a meme or something, like, oh, what are you doing tonight in the night of the Iranian attack? Or it's like
That's chutzpah.
It's part of it's also part of the mechanism.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really we sit in the shelters when we know that something is coming, of course, but we have to continue living because that's the only way, because otherwise what's the point?
Yes.
We have to continue living, and we go to work, and people go to work, people take their children to everything is regular. Not regular because we're at the horrible war with 7 fronts, and not regular because we're still fighting for our hostages, but it's been almost a year, more than a year, and it's been, sometimes you just as if go back to normal, even though everything is not normal. It's part also of human nature to adjust. There's a Hebrew singer, it's called Dudu Tassa. I think he's coming from Iraq. He's like this descendant from Jewish people from Iraq. He has wonderful music. Yeah. Is Iraq or Kuwait? I need to check. I'll send you that.
Yeah, thank you.
So he has one song that is called Basof Mitraglim Le'akol. And that means at the end, you get used to everything. It's horrible, and at the same time, it's a beautiful song. But yeah, you get used to it, and then you make the best out of the new situation. So it's, but you can't get used to the hostages.
No.
You can't get used to hostages. You can't get used to war. You don't get used to war.
Definitely. Going forward, do you think Israel will defeat Hamas?
I think that we're very good in dismantling their military capabilities these days. I think we did an extremely good job with Hezbollah.
Yeah.
But this is the time to, hit the iron while it's hot, and to really give control back to the Lebanese government and make sure that they are in charge of their people and of their of their land and nation and country. And I think that we're doing a very good job with Hamas as well. It's harder sometimes, just because they're so cynical in the way that they use.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've had different soldiers from the IDF here in my podcast, and just how Hamas is like playing recordings of Israeli baby sounds, so that the soldiers are, of course, running towards it because they think there's a baby there, and it's just a sound recording, running into an ambush. So there is so much just demonic, sadistic types of strategies that they employ.
Yeah. It's a psychological warfare. It's absolutely. It's targeted towards the soldiers. It's targeted towards every person in Israel.
Yeah.
And it's but we still have casualties.
Yeah.
We still have casualties. This is the thing. That's part of the hardships also for Israel. There's 2 words in Hebrew that every Israeli fears the most, and it's called hutar lepirsum, and that means allowed to publish. And when I have a tweet or where I have something that it says hutar lepirsum, your heart drops, because you know that an hour ago or 30 minutes ago or 2 hours ago, a family has just had the worst knock on its door. And it was told that they lost one of their family members. And it's not on sometimes, sometimes it's in groups. And like hutar lepirsum, and you have 5 names. You have 4 names, and you have 3 names, you have 2 names. And it only showcases how embedded Hamas is and how ruthless they are in continuing, regardless of the consequences, to ambush and to just continue this horrific war that they could have ended a long time ago.
Yeah, it's important to mention that, because Hamas was given the opportunity to fulfill 2 criteria: lay down your weapons and surrender, give us the hostages, there will be no war. That was an ultimatum or an offer given to them at the onset before there was a war.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
And it's important that, especially people in Norway listening to this podcast, that they know that they were given, that wouldn't have to be a war at all. They could have just done that.
The war could have ended. This is the
Yes.
thing. First of all, yes, you're right. But the thing is that right after the first couple of days after October 7, we were still fighting Hamas terrorists inside Israel.
Yeah.
People don't understand the numbers. We had like 3,000 Nuhba terrorists inside Israel, and we were trying to. Where are they? Where they planned to come and stay? They had this whole plans of how they're going to take over all of Israel. Who is going to be the governor of this city? Who is going to be the absurd, completely absurd. But also, it kind of says something about the psychic of what they thought.
And that they even believe that.
They believe that.
They
thought they probably believed that by doing that, they'll gather everybody against Israel. Thankfully, they didn't. But at any given point, give us the hostages, dismantle, done. And even people who don't believe me, just think about the fact that if it would have happened, Israel could not do anything more because nobody else will.
Yeah. And they wouldn't have wanted to either because Israel doesn't want to lose its soldiers.
Exactly. We don't want to have our own people. We don't want to kill people just to kill people.
Yeah.
We don't.
Exactly. Israel actually values life.
We do value life. And that's why it's very, very hard. And that's why we also had so many soldiers fallen at the beginning of the war because we had to take our own people, go in house to house into traps to try to mitigate and minimize the harm for civilians.
Yes.
We had our own children, our own brothers and sisters killed. So don't tell me that Israel wants to kill. If that was the case, we wouldn't have so many our own people hurt and killed. So
it's like when people are yelling that word genocide, it's like, that's the least effective genocide I've ever seen. And from two perspectives, one is that the Palestinian population is just increasing all the time. There are the millions, the curve of growth is like going upwards. So that doesn't speak for a genocide.
Yeah.
And also, if Israel really wanted to have a genocide, there wouldn't have been a Gaza left. There wouldn't have been any Palestinians left on the 8th of October. Everybody would have been gone if Israel wanted to. But Israel doesn't want that.
No.
Israel wants to kill and defeat Hamas, not the Palestinians.
Israel wants to bring back security. We want to bring back security to our civilians as any other nation would have done for its own civilians.
Yeah.
We're not unique in that. We just live in a very different neighborhood. We live in a neighborhood with most of our neighbors say, we don't want you here. So yes, our struggle is different. Our struggle is real, and it's and war is horrific. Nobody wants to do war. Nobody wants to do war. But when war is brought to your house, you have to react. Yeah. And then you have to react in a way that you're making sure that this does not happen again and still be committed to humanitarian law and to international law because you're part of the community.
Yes.
We are not a terror organization. And the fact that the terror organizations, the Hezbollah and the Hamas, are allowed to really do whatever they want and nobody is putting any blame on them, that is also part of the complicity of the world to what they're doing. Where's the pressure? Where's the pressure, Hamas? Let the hostages out. Where's the pressure on Hamas? Stop hiding behind civilians. Where's the pressure on Hamas? Don't loot the humanitarian aid that comes into Gaza. So many basic things that the international community should have said and could have said and still can say. Why don't they? In this specific, I'm not talking in general, you can criticize it, fine, that's not the issue. But you have to have an understanding of the reality on the ground. And the reality of the ground is that you have a terror organization that literally takes humanitarian aid from its own people. Shouldn't that be condemned vocally? You like to condemn a lot of things. Sometimes you condemn, sometimes you're appalled, sometimes you condemn strongly, sometimes you distance yourself. Why don't you use all these beautiful words against the terror organization that is taking humanitarian aid from its people? that a terror organization that is using infrastructure that is supposed to be for the benefit of its civilians for its own command and control hubs, a place to regroup. Why did you condemn the people that had hostages in a tunnel underneath a children's room? Do you hear that? Would you allow that if it wasn't against Israelis? Would you allow that?
And also literally sending out children as human shields, using civilians as human shields, because they know that actually Israel has standards. Like, if Israel was as brutal and sadistic as the Norwegian media tries to portray them, then having Hamas using human shields wouldn't have stopped Israel. But it does stop Israel because they don't want to kill civilians. And that's why would Hamas take human shields if they knew that wasn't effective in stopping Israel? It was like, then they wouldn't have done that because that wouldn't have had any effect. But the other way around, it doesn't have any effect. If Israel would have taken human shield, that wouldn't have stopped Hamas. That would have just given them even more motivation. So it's a terrible situation, and it's a war. It seems that it's both fought on the ground and also fought in the narratives that the Hamas are trying to control. They have a really good PR department spinning this for the Western media all the time.
Yeah, but there has to be a time where the Western media needs to take responsibility for what they're doing. So, with all the respect for spin, not spin.
Yes.
Media has a role in a democracy. It's the watchdog of democracy, and they have to make sure that they portray a full picture. They have to make sure that they do journalism, and they have to make sure that they allow the people to decide what they think instead of telling them what to think. This is extremely important for a democratic society and the media. And it's not only about the PR, it's not only about the media, it's also about the fact that the education is very basic.
Yeah.
And the world that we live in today is a world where people believe that, oh, Instagram told me that, I can learn that on Instagram.
Yes.
I can do. So let me tell you something very basic. The same way that you cannot learn mathematics in 20 seconds on TikTok, you cannot learn about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict on 20 seconds on TikTok. Period. Complexity, like it or not, we have it. You want to know it? Come learn. You don't want to learn it? You can't have an opinion then. Like, you're allowed to have an opinion, but it doesn't matter because it's not an educated opinion.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say.
And yeah, I think also you have a moral responsibility if you use such strong words as genocide.
Of course.
Which is a terribly serious word to use, which has ramifications. It has legal requirements to be able to use that word. And you use a pen and paint that on a huge plaque and you walk around with it. And I feel like you have a huge moral responsibility for what it is that you're saying.
Absolutely. You're claiming intent.
Yes.
You're claiming intent. And that is, how much do you know about anything? Do you know where we are on the map? Do you know what sea you're chanting? Do you know what Intifada means? Do you know a little bit about the history? Please, educate yourself. Ask the hard questions. It's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. Nobody wants to. But the same way as I always wake up and tell myself, I do not know everything. I would learn. I would be better today. Every day I can be better. I expect the population, everybody, to think the same way. Unless you want to be just like a herd, then go ahead.
Yeah.
But then you're a herd, and you can't be and you can't be hurt that I call you a herd, because that's what you are.
Yes.
If you are not questioning, really questioning. If somebody tells you, it was a video of Senator Rubio You saw
Yeah,
him guessing.
yeah.
Right now, it was all over.
Yes.
So he said, Israel needs to dismantle Hamas capabilities, right?
Yes.
And then she told him, so that means you don't care about the people dying. It's not what of course I care about the people dying. And I blame Hamas for it.
Yes.
But the fact that automatically he said one thing and she heard a different thing.
Yes.
And this is our problem. It's not, he said this thing, and I said, oh, so that means you don't care. That means you're complicit.
Yeah.
That means that you're a horrible person. That means, and it even goes to a worse place today when you have this whole conversation, this use of, but you see, the Jewish people themselves say that Israel is committing genocide. Like all this kind of, so we came back to a time when you're telling me who's a good Jew and who's a bad Jew in your opinion.
Exactly.
Spare me. Sorry, but spare me that. So it's,
I feel like it's a mental short circuiting which is happening there, because I get it that people see horrible images of civilians and
Horrible
kids
suffering.
die, but you cannot equate that to say that that is Israel's fault. It's like an analogy I thought about the other day was that if you see a person standing by a railroad track by the train, and then he throws a kid in front of the train and the train hits the kid and the kid dies, you don't blame the driver of the train. Like, of course, technically it's the train crashing into the kid which makes him die, but there's another intent there to actually have civilian casualties, to have human shields as much as possible, to also demonize Israel. And you cannot blame the driver of that train cart for that happening. It's the person throwing that kid in the line of fire.
And you also have to remember, if that's the analysis, then you have to remember also that the driver of the train, for example, knows that there's rules and regulations.
Yes.
And if he could have stopped right before, he would have, right? And in any other scenario, if it had one more second, he would have done it. So there's also, and that's also part of an important understanding of, even though we are fighting a horrible war, and even though, yes, there is a massive suffering in Gaza, there is, that we try to help as much as possible with humanitarian, but there's still massive suffering, and we understand that. The cause of it all is a very basic cause. The cause of it all is Hamas. And we do whatever we can do in the war that we are fighting right now. In a war. War has horrible consequences. We do everything that we can in the line of international law and humanitarian law. And I'll tell you even this. If we don't, we judge ourselves. If we don't, we have the mechanisms to do it. And that's also part of the democracy of Israel. The very strong judicial systems that we have. And the ability to check and balance ourselves. And you see that where things are not even illegal, but sometimes immoral, even then we take a stand.
And I heard that Israel also has lawyers checking every decision before there is a decision to bomb some place or going into attack some place.
There's so many professionals doing this. This is a war in a very urban, populated, very dense place, and still we do our utmost. And again, if there's a moral issue, even then, even though it's not a legal issue, but even moral issues, we take to ourselves to check ourselves and to put accountable the people that should be accountable for it.
Yes. We're going in for a landing now. I just have one final, like a really simple, easy little question.
Oh, no. I have a feeling I know where this is going.
What does it mean to be a Jew?
Oh.
Just a small one.
It is a small one, Henrik. Well, it's interesting, but I feel, first of all, it's the need to be a Jew, or what it feels to be a Jew, is only outside Israel.
That's interesting.
It is. It is. Because in Israel, you're just you're just you. And, and you have a mosque here and you have a synagogue there and you have like everything is just like, and you have a church. And that's just like part of like you're Jewish. It doesn't really affect only the fact that, Shabbat, most of the things are closed. But other than that, it's on the daily. But having been like somebody that comes from the Soviet Union and having been raised in a place with a family that knows what it is when you're not allowed to be Jewish, my Judaism is first and foremost, it's going to sound harsh, but my Judaism is first and foremost Hashivah, for example. I lost my mom at a very early age. And I remember that it dawned upon me that the fact that you have 7 days to sit and mourn, but not only mourn, celebrate the life of the one you lost, it's the most beautiful gift that any religion can give you. Even if you're not out practicing Jewish, it doesn't matter. The fact that it's first of all, in the law that you're allowed to have these 7 days, it's called Hashivah. Shiva is 7 in Hebrew. Shiva, to sit. And at that time, everybody, friends, family, they all come to be with you, to share stories, to laugh, to cry, to do everything together. I know it's morbid because it's it's about the death, but it's about the living. It's about the looking forward. It's about the coming together. It's the sense of community that is above everything. And I remember really feeling that the first time. Then, of course, you have the community, you have the holidays, but being Jewish is the fact that at the end of the day, you have a beautiful community together that also understands hardships and that is never taking anything for granted. This is what Judaism is for me. And I said that it's easier to be Jewish in Israel because outside you have to find your Jewish identity or what it means and how does it, how do you incorporate it in your daily life, in your traditional, in your traditions, So because they were not allowed to be Jewish in the Soviet Union, when we came to Israel, it was just, it feels natural. And these beautiful things inside Judaism is what makes me Jewish. These beautiful. So one is the Shiva. The second one is that when you save one life, you save the entire universe. And that is incorporated not only in my being, but is also incorporated in the state's being. The fact that in 1954, we opened Mashav. Mashav is the organization that is working in order to benefit the less fortunate in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in South America, for example, by giving them tools. They say, okay, we learned a thing or two. Now we're going to share it with the people. This is Judaism for me. This is what it means. And also it means to be always a bit more aware. We cannot allow ourselves to be vague. We cannot allow ourselves to be vague. We cannot allow ourselves to be ignorant. We have to know all the time. We have to question. We have to make sure that we have as much, because we did suffer the worst Holocaust, the worst genocide in history. And in 2024, people are still being harassed because they're Jewish. Whatever this Judaism looks like, it doesn't matter for people. So what is Judaism for you, Henrik? What is it?
That's such a good answer, by the way. The Judaism for me is like, I'm sort of a new Jew. I'm an October 8th Jew, as they call us, because I've been Jewish all my life, but it's mostly that I started cultivating and developing the Jewish part of myself after October 7th, because I wanted to find my people and I wanted to learn as much as possible and connect with other Jewish people. It feels in situations like these, it feels safer to be together with your people. To be standing together is safer than being alone. I feel like, and I feel like it's a complex thing to be Jewish. It's both belonging to a people, but also belonging to a history of a collective memory. Because being Jewish is not just belonging to the people right now, but also belonging to the people who have existed for hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. I was attending a Rosh Hashanah dinner at my friend Leif's house, and we were taking these apples, dipping them in honey. And I was saying that, isn't it amazing how many people have done this before us? How many thousands and millions of generations have done this? Like so many people that you're connecting temporally across time. The people who have done it, who will do it. And it is that sense of community, I think, and a sense of strong collective memory and a sense of strong traditions and a sense of culture, of an intellectual culture, both an intellectual religion and culture, in trying to appreciate debate and trying to appreciate being in disagreement with another, as we spoke about, but at the same time being friends, having something that is underlying everything, underlying differences of opinion, differences of temperament, or differences of the most fundamental things, and yet still being one big Jewish family.
So now I want to change my answer. Henrik, come on. This is such a good answer. But it's okay. I'll let you give the very good. I'll let you give the very good answer.
Yana, it was so good to have you here and speak with you.
No, thank you, Henrik. I think it was, for me, it was very interesting. And thank you for giving me a platform to speak. It's always interesting and important to have these discussions. Sometimes they're harder, sometimes they're easier, but it's, again, at the end of the day, we need to talk to each other and we need to make sure that we have the dialogue and that sometimes some facts can get through.
Yes, I think it's that's a key word right now. Speak to each other, talk to each other. We need that more now than any other time, I think.
Absolutely. But I will say one last thing. Bring back the hostages.
Yes, bring back the hostages, and Am Yisrael Chai.
Amen.